Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mr. Hicks Podcast. We are here getting it in once again, time and time again. So this is the first of a series that I'm doing where I'm trying to do a short form video and then link it to a long form video on a topic that is similar or exactly the same, where I can now do a long form video. Hey, if you like this, come look at this. We're going to be talking about mostly the same things. So I did long form videos for a while. Didn't really catch on. Everybody likes the shorts. So I decided to do that. It's working kind of well, and I'm hoping to get back into doing more long form. So thank you for coming. If you caught me that way, I appreciate you. So I decided to frame this whole coaching search thing on and center it on the Penn State coaching search, which I thought was absolutely fascinating because they fired their head coach, James Franklin, who is a phenomenal head coach and one that I believe was just not an elite head coach. He's going to make your program very good. He's a program builder. He's a program improver. He is a great energy coach. He is a great culture builder. And he's a pretty good recruiter. So I thought that was actually a pretty good fit for Penn State. The problem is that, and you're going to find, and this is a theme with Penn State, the Penn State still thinks they're Penn State. And they're not. And there's a lot of reasons for that, that we'll go into later. But we're going to focus on the coaching search. So they fire James Franklin on October 12th. And then by November 17th, James Franklin is already hired by Virginia Tech. So he has another Power 4 job within a month. It says a lot about James Franklin and his acumen as a head coach. Now, Penn State hires Matt Campbell on December 5th. So if you look at the timeline here, their old coach got a new job like 2 or 3 weeks before they were able to hire another coach. Now, you know they didn't hire or fire him thinking like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. No, they did their homework and they thought about who they were going to hire and who they were going to offer the job to. But it turns out that all of those people that they really wanted said no. They settled on Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, who is also a phenomenal coach, also another culture builder, and somebody who's really good at taking 3 and 4 star players, or most 2 and 3 star players really, and turning them into very effective football players. Not what I would call a national championship caliber coach, but might be his first opportunity at what some people think is a national champion caliber program. So we will see. Another thing is, like, I don't know what it's like to be like the 7th or 8th choice for a head coaching job. That's just gotta be, what's that gotta feel like to know that they didn't want you, you want the first choice, you want the second choice, you want the third choice. Like, that's kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, down in the comments, like, what would you do? I mean, it's like if you knew, like if you're getting married and you knew that your soon-to-be wife was now had a couple of kids and she was just desperate to get married, and you were like the nice guy who was good with kids and nice and stable. That's what it feels like. It feels like I didn't land anybody that I really wanted. You'll do, and that's kind of what the situation they're in. So I think a lot of what. So let's go over a little bit of what you're going to do. You're going to hire a search firm. A search firm is going to say, first thing they're going to say is, like, we want to get an overperforming head coach at a lower Power 4 team. Now, lower, you can think like, okay, it could be lower in prestige, smaller school, not necessarily a football school, like if you've got like a Kentucky or something like that, and they had a great football coach. I'm going to try to hire that guy away, give him better resources, get him to a program where he can recruit a little better. And we're going to take some of that, whatever he did there, and bring it here, and it's going to be a lot better. So they hire, the rumor is they reached out to a couple of coaches who were at some of these type programs. So you talked Brent Key at Georgia Tech, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, BYU's Kalani Sitake, and Indiana's Kurt Signetti, which I'm pretty sure they were going to try to do that. That was probably their first choice. And all those coaches said no. Now, to me, the fact that those coaches said no from the program that they were at says a lot about what Penn State really is now. The fact that somebody would stay at Vanderbilt to not go to Penn State, let me give you an idea of that. That's where James Franklin came from. James Franklin was the head coach at Vanderbilt before he took the Penn State job. He jumped at the Penn State job. When it was offered 12 years later to the next Vanderbilt coach, the guy said no. So what does that say about the state of Penn State football? So you've got that. The next thing they're going to try to do is they're going to try to hire OC or a DC from a championship team, like a really good team that's going to bring some of whatever that successful team, the team had, and bring it to your team, Penn State. So examples of this would be Georgia when they hired Kirby Smart, Texas when they hired Steve Sarkisian, which were oddly enough they're both from Alabama. One of the ones that really killed me was that there was word that they were going to reach out to Brian Hartline at Ohio State, which I was like, ooh, this would be really awesome because he could really give them something that Ohio State has been really bad at lately, which is wide receiver, and something that Ohio State was really good at. Brian Hartline took the South Florida job when supposedly he had a shot at Penn State. Ooh, that stings. I might actually do a video on that specifically because I think that's actually an interesting situation that he's got going there. The next thing you want to do is kind of a rebound coach. Like James Franklin was a rebound coach for Virginia Tech. Nebraska, Matt Rule had just gotten fired from the Carolina Panthers. He takes the job in Nebraska. That's a rebound coach. He just got off a job, and whether it was successful or not, somebody thinks he's still got some juice in the tank to be a good coach for their program. And the last thing that they want to do is get a youngish head coach from a G6 program. So Florida State did that when they hired Mike Norvell, and Florida did that when they hired Billy Napier. Both of them relatively unsuccessful. But some of them have been good. Like Curt Cignetti is a good example. But the one thing that Curt Cignetti is not is he is not young. So he's in his mid-60s. So he just wouldn't make the list for many programs. He happens to make the list for Penn State because he'd already been in Indiana for a year and he'd been very successful. But if they'd been looking the year before, they never would have looked at Curt Cignetti. He's not good enough. He's not good enough. He doesn't have the resume. He doesn't have the pedigree. All these things that I just told you is what every single Power 4 program is going to look at when they go to hire a head coach. The problem is there's Power 4 and there's Power 4. There's some programs that really think, oh, our program is just as good as theirs. No, it's not. No, it's not, Penn State, because Penn State offered their job to a lot of these coaches, and they all said no. Do you think that if Clark Lee or Brent Key or Brian Hartline had been offered the Ohio State job or the Georgia job or the Texas job or the Texas A&M or any of those jobs, that they would have stayed where they were? No. No, they wouldn't have. They would have jumped at the chance to go to a real contender, but they know Penn State is not that. So one of the things I think is Penn State's problem is that Penn State still thinks they're Penn State. Now, they have great tradition, but they haven't won a national championship since 1986. Nobody they're recruiting recruiting right now remembers Penn State when they were really that good. When they were at national championship level, it was 1986. That was older than their parents, some of them. You're kidding me to think that they don't remember that. You have to show grainy footage from ABC to even have them an idea that they were that good at one time. Since 1986, 7 Big Ten teams have won national championships. 4 of them have won multiple national championships since 1986. So if they were going to go to a team based on that, they would go to somebody who's won a national championship more recently. So, yeah, Penn State's on TV now. It was on TV back then when most people were not. They had a national hookup. Now everybody's on TV. Now that everybody can pay money. Their uniforms are, they're iconic, is what you would say. But if you're 18, 19 years old, they're just boring. If you're losing, they would rather look good. Nobody wants to just would lose in a white helmet and a blue plane. I don't particularly care, but young people care about that stuff. So let's not pretend that it's not important to them. Also, listen, I have been to Penn State on opening day. 5 years ago, I was at opening day for Penn State. They're playing Ball State of all people. That place was absolutely packed and rocking. There was 60,000 people, over 100,000 people in that stand. There was 60,000 people just sitting outside, knowing they were never going to go in. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. I think it was $60 just to park at the stadium. I've never seen anything like it. that we're going down. Me and my son are going down with the rest of the recruits to walk into the stadium. It was so loud, it felt like there was an airplane flying overhead. And I've been in the Air Force for 26 years. So when I tell you it was loud, it was one of the loudest experiences. That crowd, one of the loudest experiences I have ever been a part of. And I've sat next to a C5 when it's taken off. That's basically jet engines in your ear hole. And it was that loud. It's an amazing game day experience. Now, I say game day experience because if you've ever been to Happy Valley on a day where it's not game day, it is the sleepiest place on earth. On earth. They basically just roll up. You might be able to take the mountain, just roll up the grass and just roll over and go to sleep. It is slow. There's nothing going on. So if I am Brett Key and I want to try to recruit kids and I can pay money, does that kid want to go to school in Atlanta? Because that's where Georgia Tech is in Atlanta. Or does he want to go in Happy Valley? Does an 18, 19-year-old kid, would you rather spend time in Happy Valley or spend time in Atlanta? That 18-year-old kid, would he rather spend time in Happy Valley or Nashville, which is where Vanderbilt is? So now remember, we're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids. To get them to go to a place where it's cold, they haven't won in a long time, you're playing against Ohio State and Michigan and now Indiana every year you win, and now Oregon and USC. You're now not even a top 3 or 4 program in your conference. Penn State, this is a long uphill battle for you now. And one of the main reasons why you would never find a great coach like a Cignetti is because you still think that you can recruit the same way that a top tier program can recruit a coach, and you can't, because you're not that anymore. There's very few teams that can still do that, and let's just be real, you're not one of them. And this goes for, honestly, this goes for Mississippi State. This goes for Kentucky. This goes for Rutgers and Maryland and all these programs, and UCLA and like Oregon State or Oklahoma State. All these programs that are like, we're just as good. It's like a bunch of little brother programs that really can't do it like that. Indiana knew what they were. And the truth to be told, Indiana might have been the only place, one of the few places where Kurt Cignetti could have gone in and done what he did, because they were so bad and so almost disinterested in football. He could come in and do whatever he wanted. If you go to LSU, yeah, you got to be a great coach to be LSU's head coach. But you ain't just going there and running your program at LSU. LSU has a very recent tradition of championships. There are some other people within that program or in the orbit of that program who are going to have a say in a lot of things, including the fact that you got hired. So you're going to have to watch your P's and Q's. You ain't just going to come in here and bring in whatever coaches you want and do whatever you want. That AD, those boosters, even sometimes your high school coaching association has a lot of pull with some of the state colleges. You'd be surprised by that. So you're coming in and just running a program however you feel like it, even if you're a great coach. I mean, Saban was able to come in and do that when he went to Alabama. Why? Because he won a national championship already. And he was it was not what he is known as now, but when you bring your own ring in there, you can lay your thing down and tell everybody to sit down and shut up. Nobody else can do that at a program like that. College football is very insular, and honestly, sometimes you don't know who the puppet master is. You don't know where the money's coming from, who's really pulling the strings, who's having lunch with who's playing golf on the weekend, deciding what plays are being run, who's going to start for this, who's going to start quarterback. You don't really know. You think you know, but you don't know. Would anybody else have been excited to hire Curt Cignetti and to pull a bunch of players from James Madison and Ball State and Kent State and some of these places where he pulled players from? It goes to show right there that you can pull players from anywhere. Every single program in college football has a few good players on it. Not enough for all of them to be good teams, but every one of them's got good players. And if you're not too stuck up because he's not that tall, or he doesn't have long arms, or he doesn't run a 4.3, he's just a damn good football player, and he came to a program like Indiana and won. Now, if somebody had come into something like Georgia and you said to the boosters, I need X amount of dollars to bring this kid in from Bowling Green, they're going to be like, who are you talking to? I'm not giving you $800,000 to give to a defensive tackle from the University of Ohio Bobcats? Absolutely not. But because Signetti was going to a program where nobody really cared what you did for the football program. Oh, you're winning? Well, that's great. Nobody really thought that. We just kind of hoped that you were going to be significant. You were going to not suck. And he's done a lot more than that. But I think the situation was so interesting, and the idea that a Penn State still thinks that they are an elite program that can pull in an elite coach, and then an Indiana program who knew they couldn't pull in an elite coach, but they knew a good coach when they saw one was able to hire him, give him the reins, get out of the way, and let him do his thing. And they won a national championship in 2 years. That's why I think it's special. That's a reason why I think we may never see anything like this again. Not because there's not another Kirk Signetti out there. I think that there is. I just don't know that programs that have the resources can change the way they look at how they bring in players and change the way that they bring in coaches to be able to do what Indiana did. Can you humble yourself? I don't think most programs can. That's why I think I'm just really glad to have been alive to see Indiana football win a national championship. We may never see anything like this again. That's my time. Take it easy.